Alright, I had the luxury of sitting in on a trafficking presentation at the library, and I took this fact sheet. I found it interesting. I had a nice discussion with the lady about trafficking, about her experience. She had no experience. She is not a former trafficked person, but she's talked to the people. She's talked to investigators. And she represents an organization about trafficking. And she talks about how it's a big problem in the United States. It's targeting mostly brown women, darker skin. And in my opinion, if you study Chinese face reading, they tend to be darker women tend to be more sexual in nature, sexually motivated in nature. So they're thinking more with their need to just have sex than anything else. Love is a priority in their lives. So the majority of youth will be in a gang between the ages of 13 and 15. That's a young age, the impressionable age. And I guess that's when they want to be, the kids want to be a part of something greater than themselves. In a way, they're easily influenced. The gangs are involved in smuggling, trafficking, or prostitution across 35 states. That'd be interesting to look at the map to see which 35 they're talking about. I'm pretty sure Alaska is not going to be included then. So probably the coastal states, big city states, where the gangs can blend into the population easier. Gangs consider trafficking low risk, high profits. That's true. I mean, these cam girls are. It sounds like they're making all kinds of good money for themselves. And they're at a safe distance on the camera. Gang trafficking differs from pimps. It's not just not just a single pimp for a gang. It's a part of a family. So the victim has brothers, sisters, cousins, elders within the gang who kind of enforce control over her sexual activities. Gangs commit most of their crimes in the territory run by their crew or set and typically prostitute their victims to trusted buyers. Okay, with intimidation, and they use their reputation for violence to control the criminal enterprise. See, I divulged to this lady that I read in a 4chan post. Some girl, I believe, wrote it, saying that her boyfriend used to bring her to threesomes, okay, and then leave her with the other guy. And this had happened on multiple occasions, and the girl finally realized that she was probably getting used as part of a sex trafficking, being introduced to threesomes, which I think that she wanted the threesomes. Maybe he wanted it, but she wasn't like that resistant because she was probably curious. But then it just happened with guy after guy, and her boyfriend would like leave the room for a while or something. Girls involved with a gang may see themselves as gang members and view the act of prostitution as a chore, their duty. They perform to support their family, so they got to make money for the family. Having sex is their chore, but they'll never achieve any status or hierarchy within the gang, and are simply viewed as property by male gang members. It depends on the girl, in my opinion. There are some girls who have more authoritarian attitudes. You know, there are the weak ones. And once again, in my opinion, with Chinese face reading, I think you could figure out which girls are going to become more powerful. At a young age, in their early teens, they're definitely going to be weaker. All right, but they can rise in rank. It depends. It depends on that. A lot of times you can just see it in their jaw. When they develop strong jaws, they're going to be more domineering. Females, males. So and they could start out with kind of a weak jaw in a way. Well, actually, no. You're born with a strong jaw, regardless. That's like that's developed in your mother's womb. If your mother doesn't provide enough calcium, then you're going to have a weak jaw. Weak-jawed girls, they're definitely going to be victims. All right, they're going to be vulnerable. All right, they may not be stupid and always give in. That tends to be the brown-skinned girls. Okay, and let me just say, it's not just this lady. Now I forget her name, and I didn't take the paper that said had her name, but she was like trying to convince me that it's half boys and half girls. And I'm like, wow, really? It must be brown boys too then that are a part of this? She actually believes that it's almost, okay, almost as close to 50-50. 50% for the numbers, for the vast numbers. It's going to be half boys and half girls that are getting involved in sex operations like this, sex trafficking. I don't know. You know, it's guys, boys too. These boys are getting recruited in different ways. But I mean, I just look at it by the sex cams and stuff. There's not nearly as many sex cams for boys as there are for girls. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. And in a way, I kind of laugh at boys getting sexually assaulted. I would never do it. In my personality, I could never do that to a boy. But it's something that I'm like, well, you know, you're gonna have to get over it if it did happen to you, and overcome it, because we are full of testosterone, and that's we overcome things well with aggression. You use that experience, use your aggression, and help stop it with others. For females, it may be a little more difficult to prevent it. Each gang, set, or crew has its own colors, signs, symbols, and terminology specific to that gang. Yes. But what I was trying to explain to this lady is they're fluid. They're always going to be changing. Okay? These sex traffickers, if the word gets out that, hey, the sex trafficker's doing this particular technique, like with the threesomes, they're going to change their technique. They're going to change their appearance, their look, and try and do other things. There's just no one single way to sex traffic people. Sex traffic girls or boys. Okay, there's many different techniques, and the internet has changed it, of course. You know, for the sex cams, loyalty to the gang family will always come before loyalty to the biological family. Gang members are willing to sacrifice the well-being of their biological family if it benefits the gang. And I find it interesting. Now, if you look at Chinese face reading, if you have a detached earlobe, which I kind of do, you can bring on like a sense of family with people outside of your own immediate bloodlines. People who have attached earlobes tend to hold on to the bloodline family a little bit closer. I find that interesting, and that'd be an interesting study to make with the victims and the people who are just involved in this whole sex operation. Sex is a big thing for teens. I mean, it's just hormones are going, and it's I mean, the sex trafficking is a part of it. Okay, it's a way to maybe try to control how it's being done, but I mean, people are willing and wanting at those ages. Victims can come from any socioeconomic background and are commonly seeking an identity, protection, and family structure. They're attracted by the gang lifestyle and the gang's power in the community. Sometimes they're encouraged to join the gang because a biological family member is already gang-related. I was hoping they were going to say they were encouraged to join a gang because a biological family abandons the victim. Okay, that's what happened in the book I read, Diary of a Milk Carton Kid. Her family was just horrible to her. She felt it. And it sounded like they were not good family, so she was willing to take on a new family for herself. Gangs target youth who have few friends, weak family connections. There it is. Weak family connections. That's what happens with a lot of vulnerable people to get involved in the sex trafficking. And a desire to belong. Of course, something greater than yourself, to be a part of a group greater than yourself. Religion, gangs. Gangs use drug, alcohol, and their reputation for violence to control victims. Drugs do control people, but you got to get them psychologically more than with drugs. Because you don't want an unhealthy sex trafficked girl. You want her. If you're gonna sex traffic a girl, you want her as healthy and as attractive looking as possible, not strung out on drugs. So, there's that. I was just thinking, with porn stars, you want them as healthy as possible, so that they attract the largest crowd. No, people turn away from the unhealthy ones. They'll just be like, oh, this girl doesn't look so healthy. You probably should just let her go. And maybe that could be a good defense for the girl, is just to get very unhealthy if she wanted out. To just get overweight or underweight, look unhealthy. There's different tactics there. Girls involved in gangs may be used to carry concealed weapons or drugs. Okay. Use them as drug mules. Okay, sex toys for fellow gang members. In 2010, a national survey, 45% of high school students, 35% of middle school, said they were in gangs. Okay, that's less than half, but it's a trend that's kind of growing. Gang activity is going to be more likely to occur in big cities. That's just how big cities are. You can't turn around without running into somebody. So you might want to run into some people who you know and who you can trust. You don't want to be just a city of strangers. You want to be associated with groups within the city. That's how it is in a way. It's gangs form within large cities. Girls were more likely than boys to agree that my gang is like family to me. Gang girls are also more likely than gang boys to report that they were lonely in school and with friends, and that they felt isolated from their families. So these girls that were sex trafficked reported that they felt the gang was more part of their family, and that's the nature of estrogen. Is it's more inclusive. It's gonna want to encourage having people get together. Why can't we all get along? Why do we got to fight? Women don't want to fight. They want people to get along. And if sex is going to get people along and stop the fighting, then sex is the best answer. They learn that at an early age, that the sexual nature is what calms people down. In fact, I was told American Indians, they're so savage. But one thing that the mother used to do, maybe even the father, when the baby got upset, they'd start rubbing their penis, and it'd calm them down, because the nerves calm you down when they're stimulated. Even as babies, that's a calming activity. I've never tried it, but people don't like to deal with crying babies. Do whatever it takes. Girls in gangs have significantly lower self-esteem than girls who are not in gangs. True. Girls in gangs have serious histories of sexual and physical abuse. In one study, researchers found that 62% of the girl gang members were abused. Yes. 3/4 of the girls reported suffering physical abuse. Okay. So those who don't obey get abused, physically abused, punished, because they're not following in line. So there's mental abuse, there's physical abuse. Japanese practice that shunning. You shun. Was this thing going off the whole time when I was leaning against that? Damn it. I bet that was annoying to listen to. Well, I should probably end it here. So, yep. That really crackles. Man, I was just leaning on it the whole time.